They didn't have their lights on. I had a feeling it must be an old guy. It was pretty dark.
Yeah, it was not because I'm not taking off early, but it's like, there's a yellow, a dog is well, this is just a draft. No, this was this one, here's the first one. This is just a draft. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And this is actually for the in that little scroll down. Yeah. It's so much like us between the curves and like had something that out.
Well, no, that is.
Maybe off, you know.
Okay, I'll mention it. Okay, yeah, mention it to I don't know. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I just noticed the mismatch today because I was like, wait a second.
I can. Did you get one?
I took a picture.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. You're good. Yes. It's gonna be a long evening.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we'll get one down there.
Oh, you're good.
Hey, Jerry. We're ready to go.
Mayor Flynn, would it be helpful if I plugged into 14 to show them the budget at any point or not?
Well, they got a copy, right? Okay.
Let it go in low tech.
We'll be in low tech then.
Mr. Williams, not
We don't know what they are.
Well, he didn't let us know that we.
Very good, yeah.
It is raining. I don't know. Oh, you didn't hear that? Okay, when I came here.
drove back.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. This is the meeting, Bella Vista City Council Work Session, November 18, 2024. Our first item is review of the minutes from October 28, 2024. Is there any comments on that? Okay. Next item is unfinished business. An ordinance amending various sections of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista to provide for renaming of the Department of Community Development Services to the Department of Planning and Development, providing for reorganization, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes. This is on second reading. Taylor, did you want to give us a few words on this?
Yep, just to summarize, I know we talked a lot about it last month, but renaming it to something that's a little bit more modern and more applicable to what we do. We don't have a community development division within community development services, so we're really just planning a development office, and so we would like to name it as such, and that's a little bit more in line with what other cities are kind of doing in the Southwest or the quadrant, the four-state area. The second portion would be a slight reorganization. Right now the building division is split into two, part of it being under me and part of it being under fire. However, the Arkansas Fire Code in the residential section says that at least the chief of building official is the one that is to assign deputies such as the planning technicians and the plans reviewers. So this reorg is to be more aligned with the state fire code. Thus the reason the staff is proposing an emergency clause, so that way our local ordinance is more in tune with the state ordinance. After those two things, I think that's really the main gist of this proposal for you guys tonight. So happy to take any questions.
No, I just have a question to clarify for me. And this is about a departmental thing. Does GEC review, does that fall under planning or under?
That's me.
The chief.
That's development. So that's planning and development.
Okay. And just because, talk about it now, because I could ask about it during the budget. So we have a part-time engineer right now, right?
Correct.
Now, are we going to have another, like a full-time? Are we going to make a full-time?
I have a full-time engineer technician that is within the engineering division. So I have a part-time PE and then a full-time engineer tech. She has a master's degree in engineering.
So you have two people who are reviewing GEC?
Yeah, 1.5, yeah.
I'm
That was
sorry.
credit and Nicole was a recent hire.
Yeah.
Okay.
The tech was.
I'm glad you brought up about GECs because we were behind 6 months and had 250 when Doug Tapp left. And right now we have about 27. So that's one of the many improvements.
So the 200 and something have been,
Yeah, we
They've
have
been
27
solved.
left, which we consider 2 weeks. So.
Yeah, because that's why I was asking, because I got a call, I talked yesterday to a person, and it took me through the process, and the guy wasn't like upset, he wasn't being, irate or anything like that. He just kind of took me through what he's been facing and others, and I know some builders, I guess, had a conference or roundtable with the engineer and another person to try to find out what was going on. So I just knew it was taking some time. So it's nice to hear that that's been buttoned up.
Yeah, it took a few of us to buckle down, team up, and we got it dealt with, so.
Because, I think it was Jerry last meeting asked about the building permits, why it was taking so long with building permits. I think maybe that was getting confused with the GEC.
Well, I think that was getting confused with the septic system review, because that process is several months through the septic DRs and the state, but that's outside of city purview. That all happens before they come to us at the city.
Okay.
I heard they were 2 to 3 months backed up, just with how much development's happening here on septic systems. But I think even they are starting to catch up, and it's starting to get a lot less as well on the state side.
But I mean, this conversation yesterday was specific about GEC. We
Yeah.
wasn't over the septic.
Yeah, that's what
GECs are-
we've been hearing about mostly
Yeah.
all year.
What changed, or the process changed between Mr. Tapp and Taylor to get it from 200 to like 27? Like what made that?
What
huge
Taylor
change?
could probably explain
Yeah.
better than me, but we did hire
Yeah,
that
very nice.
engineering tech,
Which helps.
who's fairly new. And some other people helped.
Yeah, so basically there was just one person reviewing it, which that's traditionally one person was reviewing it. We had a huge influx. We used to only get like 30 a month, and then out of nowhere we were getting 80 a month, then 90 a month, then 100 a month.
That's so much.
Yeah, and so just one person reviewing that obviously cannot keep that up with the same amount of review time of 2 weeks. And so 5 of us had to step up and just work at it for several weeks.
Just get manageable again?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so you guys, I guess you don't issue building permit until the GEC permit is issued, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, what was I going to ask about? Jeez. Anyway, okay, well, it's good to hear that that number's been taken down.
Well, on the subject of building permits,
Well, that's what I was going to
have to
ask.
have you chime in on this, but I just heard today at a meeting that we had more single-family building permits than any city in Northwest Arkansas. But I didn't know what the time period is. Is that for this year, or?
I didn't see that report that he mentioned, but I believe that report was given off the year of 2023. So they, at this annual conference they do, they talk about the year prior.
Yeah.
Like per capita or just period?
No, period. More than Springdale, more than Bentonville,
And
more
then
than
you-
Fayetteville, more than Rogers, single-family homes.
So that was what I was
So
going
that's
to,
one
year to date,
reason
where are we?
kicking
We used to get a
behind.
report that was forwarded to us, but I haven't seen one this year. What is our number now in building permits for 2024?
I can pull that up and give you an exact number.
Because I saw, in the septic proposal, it references like 627 homes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's this year or, is that some homes from last year
So the
combined with this
GECs,
year?
it's important to separate when I give GEC stats versus residential stats. The GECs come first, sometimes a couple months before, sometimes even 6 months before the residential building permit. So we may have 600 GECs for this year, but there may only be 400 or 500 residentials because sometimes it takes them 6 months after they clear the lot to get all the data they need to submit a residential building permit.
Because I know what we've been 500 plus for like the last 3 years, and I guess we're probably going to at least do that this year.
We're above, last month I gave the report to the mayor, I believe we're at a 53% increase compared to last year on residential and
No kidding.
GEC permits. So we will definitely beat last year's numbers.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to vote for the ordinance. And the reason I'm not going to vote for it is because I think the ordinance is after the fact. It's already been done, and basically all we're doing is just substantiating. I think the conversation that we're having now should have happened before. We should have been privy to what was happening prior to this point. So that's just my opinion.
Okay. Yes, Larry?
I have an alternate proposal for you. There's copies for you, there's copies for here. No, those are there, those are there. There's 5 here, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, there's one page.
Yeah, or 2 pages, sorry.
I guess that would.
That's from Jerry. That was from Jerry, I think.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Would it be appropriate for this new board to join us at the table?
No.
I mean, she's not to answer, not to ask questions, but just simply familiar with how what's happening.
Well, I think she can hear pretty well from where she is.
So I may ask, why is that not appropriate?
She's not on city council. That's what she wanted.
It was, invite you.
She'll be on city council, I believe, swearing in January 1, 2.
There should be 5 there. I do have an extra one here.
But you need to refer to.
No. So, we had, in talking with Chief Sims, he said that everything's under the fire protection code, so I went to staff and they pointed me to a website, and that's the printed page where it says volume 1 on the front, volume 2 and 3 on the back. And in those codes, it's very explicit that volume 1, even though it's the Arkansas Fire Prevention Code as an umbrella, volume 1 is really the fire department. It's the fire code. That has to do with everything about fire protections within buildings, sprinkler systems, materials, insulation, and things like that. You turn over to the other side, volume 2 is also under the umbrella of the fire protection code, fire prevention code, But it's really the International Building Code for buildings, commercial buildings. So it covers everything that's not covered on the building for fire protection, which is volume 1. Fire protection is fire protection products, materials, things like this. The volume 2 has to do with the building structure itself, how you do the building. And then volume 3 is the International Residential Code, which is, again, under the umbrella of the Fire Prevention Code in Arkansas as the big umbrella, but it really is the residential code. So it's called the IRC 2021. The volume 2 is the IBC, or International Building Code. Now, both of those are yes, under the Arkansas Fire Protection Code. But the reality is that you will note that for volume 2 and volume 3, they do permit a local building department with a chief building official, and that's who manages all of the stuff. We currently have a chief building official, that's Fred Huddleston. He's been with us for a while now. He's our chief building official, certified, and he's responsible for all of the activities. He now works under Chief Sims because we moved the inspection group over and he was part of the inspection group. That takes me then to the next document, the next handout. One is the department plan that we received last meeting. It says Department Organization tentative October 29th. Organizational chart, I'm thinking that that maybe this is a little bit stretching for a planning director. Granted, she's a talented lady, but there's a lot of things going on here, and it's not going to allow her time to do her job if you make her a department manager. So I'm suggesting that we don't do that. For the fire department, there's a proposal to move the permitting division from CDS over to under the fire chief. And I have a proposal, if you flip the thing over, it's a sketchy drawing, but it has the same stuff on it in the same order. So on the left side is the planning department. Suggestion would be is that you maintain the planning department pretty much like it is, where Taylor would be the planning department director. The staff that are shown on the other side would remain, and they would actually, there was a request for a compliance development review. My suggestion is that the staff themselves take on that function as an expansion of their role, and to do field work, or field inspections, field final verifications, acceptance inspections with the city engineer and the project people from the owner's side as the, and I'm assuming that's what the compliance review person is supposed to do. And then...
So let me, you're saying don't hire the DCO, the compliance officer, and have the staff do that instead?
Have the staff perform that function.
In their spare time, I guess. Huh?
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of stuff on the planning schedules lately, at least a lot of stuff, and I having served in that similar position in Centerton, it was the planner's staff's responsibility to follow that project through construction and acceptance. So we were there project problems in the field. We were there when they did the final acceptance inspection to see did it conform with all of the things that they were approved to and required to do. And so, yeah, there's some time, but it's a learning and growing experience for the staff, but it provides them involvement throughout the whole thing. Now, that's not to say that maybe you don't need a person in that support team. I don't know that. I don't know what the workload is. And maybe the workload is stretched out. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's time consuming and shortcuts need to be made. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, one difference between our city and others, particularly places like Centerton, is they'll have big developments on flat land. Right, so every house in the whole development's virtually the same thing.
Well, but this has to do with houses.
When we're doing 500, 600, well, that has to do with how busy planning is. When you're doing 500 or 600 and permitting and building inspectors, when you're doing 500 or 600 houses, and they're all different,
But the permitting
they're
is,
all custom.
but Mayor, the permitting is going over to the fire department is what the proposal is. So the permitting is not going to be in the planning department.
Yeah,
Permitting is going over to fire.
yeah.
Joint inspection.
I need to direct everyone to the ordinance, okay? The ordinance adopts changes to various sections of the code. And when you look at,
And I didn't bring any proposals for that.
well, but this is what's on the agenda. There's no organizational structure on the agenda. But what it does do, three pages, two of the pages are just changing the name of the department. That does nothing basically other than that. Then you've got, at the very beginning, some places where CDS was doing something, and now it's going to be the mayor or the mayor's designee. So what I have to say to you is that what this does more than anything is allows the mayor to structure the government according to the way the mayor wants to do it, or the mayor's, whomever he designates to do a particular job. It doesn't adopt a wholesale structural ordinance, nor does it particularly say this goes from you to the fire department. It just says the mayor will determine it. So I just want to make sure everybody's seeing what is actually on the agenda, because I've heard a lot of this, well, we're going to move to the fire department. It's not what it says.
I guess we don't know what the proposal really is.
Well, no, the changes would be to give the mayor the authority to
Right.
determine
Right.
who does what. So I mean, versus what we're doing now, but I just want to make sure you understand what's on, what
Okay.
the agenda
And
is.
I didn't go into the draft to revise any of that. The concept is what I'm submitting to the council to consider, the mayor, the staff. And it puts, in the engineering side of it would be under technical services, the trails being there, the engineering part being there. And they would coordinate any engineering consultants, not planning consultants, engineering consultants. So they would coordinate projects, construction. Fire department, as an example, the construction that's going on there, they would be involved with that to a degree. So,
Question here. So, if I understand you correctly, or what you're saying is that the council has no part in the organization or structure of the city?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm
Okay.
saying that this proposal doesn't,
the proposal.
it's not necessarily adopting an organizational structure, nor is it particularly, to the extent that it's making a change, it's saying instead of CDS, it'll be the mayor or the mayor's designee.
Okay.
So that's, and yes, the city council can, by ordinance, adopt an organizational structure of the city. The city council can do that.
Okay. So,
So this is just like supplemental things we were given, to propose like, hey.
Well, this is from Larry, this is not.
Oh, no, the one that.
Oh, that, yeah, well, that was, I think what the mayor's saying,
It's just like-
is like, this is what my plan
His
is.
ambition, this is what your vision is, how you want to move forward. But like, if you have liked the suggestion, you have the ability, if we do this, you have the ability to make that your suggestion and your choice.
Or anything other than that.
Yes,
It
because
doesn't-
as the CEO of
Yeah.
the city.
Yeah, it's not carved because of what the attorney Jason has spoken. And all of it's loose-ended, but this was a concept that was thrown
Right,
out.
and so that's what and just finish, I think I just said this, but the mayor's staff has put a proposal to say, when we make, if this change is approved, this is how it would be the mayor would want to organize it.
I think what's happened is decisions were made on personnel, departmental changes and personnel, and then asking us to come back and approve it in arrears. And I don't think we really got ahead of it, you know, presented it to council first. And we kind of talked about that, Mayor, you know, some. It's like, well, you're asking me to approve something you've already made a decision on. You're the mayor. I've said it several times, you know, you're the CEO. And I understand that, right? I mean, that's been presented to us several times by JC in the past, you know, what the city council role is. But I think kind of some of the issue is some of this should have been talked about prior to the changes actually being made, because they're done, and now you want us to approve it. So it's not comfortable doing it that way, but that's kind of where we are right now. The only thing I would ask, you know, if this was approved, because, you know, there's some pretty big changes here, it feels like, right? Is that there was an evaluation of this, you know, something like 6 months into the burn, an honest evaluation of, is it working like we need it to? And if it is, fine. If it's not, let's say it isn't, and let's take steps to fix it. That's what I would ask at this point, right?
Okay, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
That was my point a moment ago,
Yeah.
is that we're,
Yeah.
And I see this organizational layout that's proposed here, tentative October 29th, is really taking our planning person, our key planning person, and making them a department manager. And a department manager is something that doesn't have a lot of time to perform functional work. There's some time in there, yes, but with the breakdown that's shown here, a lot of that time is going to be in department management, staff reviews, staff administration. A lot of time will go into that, which will detract from the primary benefit of that individual's talent, and that is the planning functions of the city. We got some big stuff that's still ahead of us that we're not over the hill on.
You know, Larry, I don't disagree with you. It looks like a full plate in management without performing a function, right?
Yeah.
Don't know. We haven't done it yet, right? Or we're headed that way. So we're going to find out, I guess. I don't know that like right now, that I would vote it down, because we've already moved in that direction. Decisions have been made, because that can really muck things up, you know.
I don't know too much, but
Yeah, but
maybe a realignment of some staff that's a
Well,
little
the
higher.
staff is quite anxious about it, and frankly, a little agitated after what happened last month. Because of some of the questions you raised, I talked to the building inspectors who have been under fire for over a year, and asked them how they liked it, and they said, yeah, this was fine, they liked it. And I talked to the permit people about it, and they're dying to switch under fire. They can't wait. I mean, they're crazed about it.
yeah, that's all well and good. I'm just saying we kind of put the cart before the horse in a way.
Yeah,
You know, it wasn't presented first, this is what you're thinking, this is what you're going to do. You pull the trigger on it, and then you come back to ask us to approve it in arrears. It would have been more comfortable if it was the other way around, for
Yeah.
sure.
And
No, go ahead.
I've done some checking with some of the area folks, and there's a concept out there called community risk reduction. And that's the reorganization plan that's being proposed in Bella Vista by moving permitting and inspections into the fire department. However, when I talked to some of the area department folks, it looks like it's a retirement setup for an employment setup for retired fire employees who don't want to do anything else, but who would want to stay involved at a remote level with the fire department. One of the local fire departments, their entire staff doing inspections, permitting, and all of that is retired fire folks. A fire guy goes in at 22 years old, retires in 20 years, so he's 42 years old. Now I think he qualifies in Laffey for retirement at that point, does he not?
I don't think the age of the particular employee is relevant, that should be
Well,
part of the discussion.
whether it's 42 or 48 or whatever, it's long before 65 or whatever.
It has no bearing.
Typically. And so they're looking for other employment because medical insurance for families is very expensive if you go out on the market individually. It's very expensive. So they want to go to an employer. So in one case, all of the employees in doing the permitting and the inspections are retired fire folks. They're not old, but they're retired.
So what's wrong with that?
Well, I don't know that there's anything wrong with that.
I mean, looks like they would be.
Because they have to be certified to do the inspections for, if they're doing electrical inspections, they
Well,
have to be
that's
certified.
not what we're doing.
We're not talking about hiring different people to do this. These are people that already work for us.
No,
Correct.
right, no,
Correct.
you're not looking at changing the people. I'm saying it's going to evolve to that likely, only because of what I see in some of the neighboring departments and how they work.
There's no way to predict that.
There's no way to predict that. I'm not being critical, I'm saying that that's a likely probability
I don't know.
because of how it's organized. And so my whole point being is that I think we need to make sure that we have a chief building official under the fire chief that's directly, authoritatively in charge of the inspections and the permitting. I mean, that's my point.
Yes,
Because
and
I-
That's what they're going to do.
It's the structure we have. I don't know if it is or not, because it looks like the permitting, it looks like the permitting is being moved under the fire chief, and if you turn the thing over and look at it, the permitting section is going to the fire chief, and the building inspection division goes to the fire chief. And my point being is that the chief building official is in charge of both of those.
And the fire chief is the chief building official.
Well, he's not, he's the chief fire official. It doesn't say anywhere in the codes that I could find.
It's either or.
It's not, it doesn't say, I couldn't find anywhere where it says either or.
But this is what we're voting on.
I
We're voting on.
apologize.
Voting on what's in the
But
appendix.
I read through
Perfect.
That is for information.
umpteen pages in volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. Spent lots of hours looking at that code that was out there.
Well, one of the things that I would like to say is, I've been here, it's going to go on 6 years pretty soon. It's an evolution.
It
The
is an
city has been growing very rapidly, and will probably continue to change who reports to whom and the structure as we grow and become a different city. We don't know what it's going to look like in 10
And then
years.
the question is, why do we need to become a different city? I know we have changing.
I'm not going to talk about that because
Okay.
I'm just saying, we're certainly different than we were when Cooper Communities built Bella Vista, right?
Oh,
It's
we
a
weren't here when-
continual evolution.
We
is what
weren't
I'm
here when
saying.
Cooper built Bella Vista.
Yeah, I'm just saying our employee base is going to have to continue to evolve to meet the needs of the city and the citizens.
But where do you see us changing to meet those needs? Where is it? We have trails, we picked up trails. So we have 2 people in the organizational structure for trails. And that's adding 1 under the new program. I think he's been hired. Yeah.
It's our same current staff.
Huh?
Yeah, we're getting,
Okay.
coming off topic.
So, and I know, but some other people talked to Chief Sims as well. I mean, I stopped in and we had a conversation. And Chief, in our conversation, if I recall, we're kind of going to a structure that existed before we became a city, correct?
Yes.
And I guess it was Frank decided to organize like this, or?
It was under Frank's administration when they made the building division. That's correct.
Right.
And it was under Chris Simpson.
Yeah.
That's right.
We didn't have the people. I mean, I can answer, it wasn't long, we started inspecting houses and do that part. The ACC was doing that. We adopted building codes and started doing that. I think we had a CDS department. I can't remember the timing of that first. And so, you know, anything that we did developed as a necessity at that time to do with the employees we had that had the skills that they had at that time. And so, you know, why we did what we did at the beginning, a lot of times we didn't have much other choice.
Right, gotcha. So anyway,
And at one point in time, the fire department was up over all volumes, volume 1, 2, and 3.
In my recollection, Chief Sims, is that building inspectors for electrical, plumbing, otherwise were under the ACC's office.
They were either ACC or the Benton County Inspection Division.
If it was in the county.
They both-
If
they
it wasn't
both-
POA line, it was in the
They
county.
both assisted the city back in those days.
And so how the fire department interacted with that, I don't have any intimate knowledge or understanding, but I do know that the ACC issued the building permits, did all the inspections for the permits, and approved occupancies.
And they
I
worked
don't know
hand in
how the
hand.
fire department was connected with that.
Yes.
Other than commercial buildings, you obviously were connected because that relates to volume 1.
And depending on what they're inspecting, we also had input on volume 2 and 3 as well. back then.
So I respectfully differ with you in terms of the authority, because that clearly says chief building inspector, chief building official,
And that's
and chief
correct.
fire
We have a
official.
chief building official here, yes. Brad Host,
And so,
as you mentioned before,
Under your authority.
under my authority.
well, but it doesn't say that in the code. So
It's under my authority.
doesn't say it in the code that it's under the fire department. The umbrella is under the fire protection code. It's a 3-volume set. You got 1, you got 2, and you got 3. But volume 2 and volume 3 both distinctly refer to chief building official. They don't say chief fire official, they say chief
If
building.
the chief building official answers to the fire chief, all practicality, that makes the fire chief the chief building official.
Correct.
By default.
So bottom line here is, we either vote for this ordinance or we don't vote for it. If we don't.
It's always the choice.
Okay, and if we don't vote for it,
Then you're where you are and you do something else or don't do anything.
Okay, from Larry's organizational chart here, I'm sorry, it seems to make a lot of practical sense. Taylor, I don't know about Taylor's management abilities. I don't know anything bad about Taylor's management abilities, nor do I know anything good about her management. I don't know, but it certainly would appear like you're overloading her here.
Well, actually, we're taking things away from that. We already took building inspectors and code enforcement away from the CDS, and now we're taking permitting away from CDS. So actually, I think we're making it her focus on planning and development, which is her strong suit and her subordinate strong suits. So I agree she has a challenging job, especially here at first, but she's up to the challenge. Most of the changes I was making, I was trying to find talented managers to manage things.
Right.
And that's why things are under police that didn't used to be under police. And things are under fire that didn't used to be under fire, and things are under Taylor. I'm just looking for talented managers.
Right.
And I know the people who are working for me, I can tell who's who.
Well, I agree with you. I think that what's under the fire department that's where it should be. I think it's great. As well as the police department. I think code enforcement being there is excellent move. That's just my opinion, looking at that she is being the chief planner, putting her as administrative duties on all of these others is overloaded. But now, again, I guess that's your choice to make, but that's just opinion.
Well, unless you were to propose a change in the ordinance that's drafted. because the ordinance right now leaves it pretty open-ended. Leaves it-
You all don't have to do everything about a topic at one time. So what you can, you can, if you don't like, if whatever this ordinance does that you don't like, vote against it. And then if it doesn't pass, then, you know, we'll draft something that you want, and then we'll have a vote and see whether it passes, and, you know. But we need to avoid the, well, okay, now we're talking about organization, it's all, and then stuff we haven't even thought about and throwing in. I think we need to key on what is in the agenda and what the ordinance says or doesn't say, and then move on, you know, either enact it or look at something else in the future. Yeah.
Taylor?
Just to bring us back to the ordinance like Jason's talking about, there's only 2 or 3 areas where it's reassigning permits to the mayor or his designee or the city, which is all of Chapter 103 currently. Currently, Chapter 103 is our building supplemental code in our ordinance, and that is very vague. It says the city. That is currently open to the mayor and his designation, as reads currently right now. There are some few stragglers in regards to permits that we are proposing to match that, and I say few, I mean like literally 3. The rest of this is just renaming all of 107 and 109 to planning and development, because 109 is our zoning code, so that's planning. 107 is our development code, which is obviously development, so it's just renaming those areas. So I will still hold the permits that I've been reviewing since I've been here in 2020. Nothing's changing that. Just the permits that should go to fire to be clean with the rest of Chapter 103 as designated by the mayor, such as pods or temporary storage units. That is what's being proposed here, just to clean up. That's the cleanup part, is just to match the rest of the ordinance. So if this ordinance doesn't, if you guys end up not wanting to pass this, then we may be looking at changing all of Chapter 103, which would be an entirely different thing, as well as the other chapters of code. We'd be looking at rewriting several chapters of our development ordinance. This is just cleaning up what's already there and then renaming us to be more specific as to what we are and modernizing it a bit.
I should ask one question, and I will terminate mine.
Okay.
Have you looked at this, Larry's organization chart?
This is the first he's seen it.
No, I
so-
hadn't seen it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I just wondered if you had an opinion on it, but, again,
Read it?
Yeah, we must move along. New business, ordinance C, amending section 103-189, additional requirements, permitting of the Code of Ordinances, City of Bella Vista to require septic permits prior to installation, repair, or replacement of any part of a septic system not related to new construction and for other purposes.
it's like, I have a question. I brought this up previously, and one of the big objections to it was primarily from the septic installation companies, B&B, and I can't remember the other one, but their big concern was the getting the permit. So is this going to be a permit that they can obtain online without having to actually come to?
Taylor, I think Taylor got some feedback from some of the installers.
I heard from them who you're mentioning, they were supportive, but yeah, they reiterated that, just wanted to make sure that the permit would be easy and online, but all of our permits currently are online, so this will just be another one that is online and almost, we call them over-the-counter permits. Our sub-permits are pretty quick, they don't have to go through a formal plan review process or anything like that.
I'd like to compliment you on the good job that you did with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My one question would be, and I think I would propose that we do that, it talks about a fee of $25 for residential and $50 for commercial. Is it okay to make it $25 for both?
You guys have the authority to change our fee schedule. So if you wanted to change
And it's
commercial
in
and
it's in the draft here, at least I thought it was in the draft.
yeah, that's current.
It's set the initial fee schedule for it, for the permits for doing this. And I thought would be, I don't know that a commercial is going to be any more work than a residential would be, and so I thought would be is make them both the same.
That's our current fee schedule, so if you wanted to
Oh, the
change
25 and 50?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So it would just, if you guys approve this on Monday, then it would just automatically fall under the fee schedule you've already approved, which would be 25 residential, 50 commercial.
And so those fees that are out there now are installation of a new septic system?
It's just a plumbing sub-permit.
Oh, just a plumbing permit?
Yeah, just a subcontractor permit for plumbing.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay. I'll withdraw that comment.
I just like to, my compliments in writing it up. I think what really solidifies everything, there's like a document out there about the overarching conversation of septic systems in Bella Vista that the gentleman wrote. And he's very close to septic and thing. I can't recall his name right now, but it's really good. It really opens my eyes. But the statistics that you put behind it, the write-up that you did, I mean, I don't know how anyone could read this and go, wow, we really need to understand our situation in Bella Vista and where we are. So out of 627 single-family residential buildings, applications we've received in 2024, only 73 of them have sewer for sanitation. That's only 12% of single-family development. The other 554 are on their own individual septic system, right? And I don't know how many of these homes, probably none of them have a secondary location if their original field fails, that they could run additional lines, right? Or they got to go into POA property, or they have to do a sci-fi system that's incredibly expensive, right? So I commend you, and I think it's a no-brainer for me. You know? And it's not expensive to obtain the permit either, right?
Yeah.
And right now, what's being installed, you hope and pray they're being installed correctly, right? But you don't know for sure. So, yeah, it's a nice job.
So if there's an if they hook up to sewer and there's an abandonment of the septic system, would that require the permit then?
That already requires a permit.
It already does?
Or requires a plumbing permit.
Okay, all right. So that's already independent from this?
Yep.
Okay.
Want to move on? Number D is an ordinance amending section 12-1, providing potable water to locations with failing septic systems of the code ordinances of the city of Bella Vista to provide further circumstances constituting septic failure, declaring an emergency, and for other purposes.
This I brought to you guys during work session last month, and just based off the conversation, I brought forward what I captured from your comments, just expanding the definition so I can capture more instances that are more aligned with the state health department, and get those septic concerns and public health concerns fixed quicker.
So do we have system, are you aware of a system that would fall under this particular ordinance at the moment?
At the moment, no, actually, I just closed out my last failure a couple weeks ago. But I've ran into some within the last year that were not covered under the current ordinance, and so I would like to capture those.
Yeah, so, you know, Staff Attorney Kelly, he took us through the original kind of writing and how they landed on the surface water, right? That's the most identifiable. But then you have a couple that are backing up into the home. I guess the backing up into the home, how would that be reported to you? You know what I mean? I mean, if that happens, how would you be
A
notified?
tenant that leases the place would
A lease,
say,
okay.
would say, the tub won't drain and the toilets won't flush, and they would notify us. And that's how, more than likely, how we're gonna find out.
I mean, I'm aware of a home and it backed up in a home. I don't want to tell you what the circumstance is, but if it backs up, it could just simply be because it's overloaded by over occupancy. I'll put it that way. And once that occupancy goes away and you have the proper number of people living there, it kind of clears it up, right? It can. I mean, it doesn't mean it's failing.
Yeah, it's
It
not.
just means it's just too much water at one time.
The field is overloaded and
Right.
it can't absorb it as fast as it's.
Right, but once it filters through and it evaporates, it can kind of fix itself.
So one of the things that was one of my concerns, which has been addressed, was to basically say, and they have to comply with the health department, and to reference the health department. We did not do that. And so instead of it just saying when it flows on the ground, it adds 2 additional things that would make it failing for purposes of our ordinance. Discharges into a dwelling unit, which is what you were just talking about, and discharges into local surface or groundwater. So when we talk about groundwater, we're talking about water in the ditch.
No,
lake?
groundwater, we're talking about the karst topography, so like Typically,
A
this
cave.
water, you'll see this, like if you're on a hillside or like on Tanner Creek, do you see it coming down below the house, like out of the ground instead of down on the surface? That's what I'm trying to capture, where it's coming straight out of the ground instead of rolling down the surface. Typically on hillsides, near creeks, which is exactly what we want to avoid, to capture those as well.
You know, it's really interesting. You did those 2 sessions for residents to come and learn how to properly manage, their septic system. And, the first one was really well attended. The second one, not quite as much. But I don't know, sometimes it's just getting it out there. But one of the young ladies that worked, I don't know if she worked for the health department or whatever, but showing a situation, what you're talking about, where you have a home up high and then it's kind of like on a bluff. It's not necessarily a bluff, but then you have the stones, I'm going to call it. And just shortly after she had shown that example, because that water that's coming up out of those lines, it only goes so deep, but it was raining. I'm going home, and I just looked over, and I could see the water running out of the cracks of those bluffs, and there's a septic system right there, going right down into the creek below it, which flows right into Little Sugar Creek, and Sugar Creek, it just keeps going downstream. And I was like going, man, and we have a lot of that here. And lastly, I'll just say, the focus that's being put on septic systems in Bella Vista right now, I'm glad to see it happening. It needs to happen really badly. So I'm happy to see this percolating to the top, so the community at large can kind of get more engaged in this conversation, because it's really troubling, not just today, but certainly into the future. And we could really find ourselves in a bind, So again, I applaud your efforts. So, yeah.
Okay, we ready to move on? E is an ordinance enacting a new section 2-202, Deputy City Clerk of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Bella Vista, to allow the city clerk to appoint a deputy and for other purposes. You want to talk about this, or
Well,
Wanda, do you want to?
I was asked to create some legal structure where Wanda could appoint a deputy to sit in on a meeting and take the minutes, or if she were to happen to not be able to be present, or to certify a document if you weren't there, under her direction. And so there's really no legal structure in place to do that in our city code. And so I created one. That's what this ordinance does. It's very short. I'll read it to you. It basically creates a new section of the code that says as follows: the city clerk may appoint one deputy city clerk to perform such official duties as may be determined by the city clerk. No appointment of a deputy city clerk shall be for a period longer than the elected term of the city clerk making the appointment. The deputy city clerk must be an employee of the city legally eligible to serve. So what this would allow is, I don't know, say Cassie, for example, were to be here, and Wanda could designate Cassie as deputy city clerk for any period of time she wanted, or for the rest of her term, or however. But you can only have one at a time, and they have to be an employee of the city, because we don't want Wanda going rogue and going out there and appointing 50 or 60 deputy city clerks that aren't city employees showing up, wanting to go through the file cabinets.
That
And
was going to be my question. Is it one person?
It's
or
one
could it be-
person at a time.
No, at a time.
At a time.
So it could be Cassie. It could be
Yes, it
Brenda,
could be,
Cassie couldn't do it.
she
Okay.
could, we'll create a little document that says, I appoint Cassie Lapp to be deputy city attorney until the close of business on December 31, or
So,
whatever day.
so she could appoint him for a year at a time?
She can be no longer than the rest of her term. That's what the ordinance would allow. That may not be what she intends to do, because it is going to be up to her whether to do it.
What would they have access to?
I think she wants to say something, so she's going to.
Could I add a little background? The reason that I wanted this to happen is because the clerk job at this point is a single point of failure. If I would get in an accident, I'd be out. I mean, there are different jobs in the city like that, but not many people know what a clerk does, actually. And it concerns me. And our city's growing, and we don't have a deputy clerk. We did have a person who was willing to sit in for me. It's happened twice that I couldn't be here.
You said we do have or did have?
We did,
We
but
did.
that is no longer the case.
Okay.
And
they were
so,
not operating officially.
right, it was unofficial.
Okay.
So my concern is I'm always a planner ahead. I do not plan to be gone for any reason, but life happens. And I just want to make sure if something happens and I can't be here, that there would be somebody to sit in, because those functions have to occur. So that's the thinking.
So that person needs to be someone, again, for the term, at least appointed for your term, so that they are fully aware of what all that you do. I mean,
The trainings, like
Yeah.
how to work the
They're-
mics or how to do.
they're fully aware of everything that you do. So that would not want to be someone that would change out maybe every 2 weeks or every month or something.
No, it would be until the end of my term.
Well, I thought the way you worded it, I mean, you could appoint him for a weekend.
You
couldn't
can, or she can
You
appoint them
just
to the
be
end
for
of her
one
term.
week, just for one
Or
week.
one night,
I intended
one
to,
meeting.
Yeah.
I wrote it to provide maximum flexibility to the city clerk.
The point being is that I've been working for a city clerk for over 35 years, so have a little insight there. Deputy clerks are not somebody you pick off the street corner or because they're a good clerical person. So they need some training and they need some certification, and that needs to be a part of this program when you talk about the deputy city clerk for Wanda's benefit, because they need to understand some of the confidential things and other things that they deal with, the rules and regulations of the road that you work under at your job. So there is some training that's warranted for that person. Is my
I would say two things. One, you can get elected city clerk with no training.
You can.
Yes, as long as you're a qualified elector. And then number two, as any of, as the mayor or as you, or that has people that work for them, you know, it's up to Wanda to pick an appropriate person that can handle the job and to provide the training they need to do whatever it is she's requested. So I'm unfamiliar with any city going to that level of detail with something like this. I think typically, yes, in a city of size, I worked in Fayetteville, they had 7 or 8. Only a couple of them, I think, were designated deputy city clerks, and they would go to conference, and they had a little kind of a higher level of involvement, I guess you would say, and experience of that. I think that's probably getting to what you're saying. We just need someone that can take minutes and sign a certification of a document or something if Wanda is unable to attend, or and she's just trying to make sure that the whole city, because the city would stop. I'll be honest with you, it is important. The legal function she has is important.
It's critical.
It's critical. You're
It's not
correct.
important, it's critical. So having a deputy is equally as critical as having a good quality clerk. And she's taken an interest in it. So I just want to emphasize the fact that there is training that's going to be involved in that person that needs to be available to be able to do that stuff. Go to the training classes, et cetera. So.
You said that the person should be, has to be an employee of the city. Does that mean she can retain someone and then become an employee of the city, or do they already have to be?
Before they could be appointed, they would have to be an employee of the city.
So hired in that capacity and then.
So that means she would have to get a deputy from within the current staff?
Yes.
It's kind of mayor pro tem, essentially, right?
No.
Well, the kind of capacity, like.
I'm not an employee of the city.
No, but in the capacity that, like, if he's unable to fill his duties.
What the entire, we have certain employees that work at the city that would be able to fill in.
Okay.
That could stay late one night and fill in, or be there in the office. Again, I'm going to be the chief one that's going to need, I need a certified copy of this ordinance because I got a file, I need it for court. And Wanda's not here, but, you know, we've got Cassie that's a deputy, so she could put that seal on it and sign it as deputy clerk under her authority. Otherwise, no one can do that, I can't get what I need, or, you know, when things need to be filed. Like sometimes you all have documents you have to file with the city clerk, you're concerned about, is Wanda going to be there? Well, we can have a deputy and you'll have the assurance that someone there with legal authority has accepted it. Because that person, wherever it says city clerk in the law, that deputy city clerk can do that very thing. under
So
one's
you
authority.
answer my question then. So basically, that person needs to be someone that is available in City Hall. Whenever City Hall is open for business, that person needs to be.
They need to be an
Maybe a
employee of the city.
Regular employee.
I can't say, we might not have someone, there are some laws about things like police department employees, say, operating in another department, in terms of like a deputy court clerk, which is a different example. But we want to make sure whomever is an employee of the city has no impediment to being able to lawfully serve.
Okay.
And so, that's all that's intended. And we want to, of course, this law stays in effect until some council in 100 years repeals it. And you never, it's never, Wanda's never going to do this. No one at this table, no one we would think of would do this. But you could have a situation where you could get a rogue elected official that could go out and start a point and say, oh, well, I've been appointed deputy city clerk. Let me into that file cabinet.
Yep.
And we wouldn't really have much cause to be able to, and so we need to make sure we know how many there can be and that there's some control over who that person would be. And so that's the reason for those restrictions.
I thought some city around here had kind of a conflict between the mayor and the city clerk.
That's happened.
Weren't they?
It's happened.
That has happened.
Yeah. So, but we all get along swimmingly here in Bella Vista. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So is this going to solve and address your need?
Correct, yes. I have no intention to change, I take this job, I was sworn in, I take it very seriously. But I also know that if I get in a car wreck on the way to a meeting or whatever, that business needs to go on, we need somebody who can sign papers. They won't have that kind of, the files are locked, paper files, and the digital is also, only a few people can get into that. So that's not really a concern. I wouldn't ask for that. It's presence, it's recording, it's signing.
But you have somebody that you know can fulfill this
I
correctly?
do currently.
Or more than one, maybe?
One person.
Only
And I
one?
could think of a few myself. I mean, City Hall very capable.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Okay. Number F is resolution authorizing participation of the City of Bella Vista in Benefit Program 4 of the Arkansas Local Police and Fire Retirement System, LOP fee, for eligible employees who are firefighters or police officers. Glenda Kelderman.
Yeah, this is, I brought this up last month just as a discussion item. Nothing has changed since I brought it up last time. We're just trying to enhance the volunteer credit for anybody who volunteers in the fire or the police department so that they get a little better LOP fee credit for their volunteer time. That's what it amounts to.
Can you explain how that's going to work or how this benefits the people?
Okay, so for one thing,
So do we have some volunteers now that do things in the fire department without pay?
Yes.
That are retired fire people, as an example?
we have one volunteer in the fire department, we have one volunteer in the police department. And what this does is it enhances the amount of money that's credited towards their LOP fee account as a volunteer. And very little difference to the city. We go from paying $6 per volunteer per month to $20 per volunteer per month. So we're basically funding at a little higher level.
So as a volunteer, they don't get compensated to do that work,
Right,
but this is an alternative,
in lieu of some compensation, yeah.
so it's really a benefit to the employee,
Volunteer,
well, to the
Yeah.
volunteer.
They get additional years
To
of
create an
service.
incentive for them to want to volunteer.
right, yes.
So it's $20 an hour then, six?
No, just $20 a month. So
$20 a month.
more. Right now, we're paying $6 per month. It would be 26, so 240 per person per year is all it costs us.
So we thought we'd help them out and yet
Yeah.
hardly cost us anything.
Yeah, it doesn't
so.
cost us a lot. Yeah. How many volunteers do we have?
Only 2.
Only 2.
And we don't see that growing a lot, for, at least for a while. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Glenda. The last one is G, amending the city council rules of order and procedure to modify the order of voting so that members are rotated per meeting rather than per vote, making clarifying changes and for other purposes. And I do get the blame for this. I'm noticing at the meetings, you know, the clerk is constantly changing the order of voting. Because it's a big deal supposedly that you have to vote last. You don't want the same person voting last. Well, we constantly have votes that are 6-0 and 5-1, and every once in a while we have something controversial. So I thought, why are we switching vote, you know, the order every single time we vote? Let's just have going in one order for that whole meeting. Then the next meeting, somebody else finish, you know, every month. That way throughout the year, everybody would twice, you know, would have it come up twice. And also Jason put in the ordinance, this might already be the case, I'm not sure, about voting in order. First, Ward 1, position 1 votes.
That's already in the rules.
Yeah, then Ward 1, position 2. So you vote in order, and actually, so the main change is just that we go in the same order for a whole meeting. Then the next meeting, you know, we'll move up 1. Then the next
Ward
meeting.
1, position 2 would be the first one on the next time. Then.
Yeah.
And the last will be Ward
Yeah.
1 position.
Yeah.
Instead-
Or whatever she chooses to
That
do.
seems easier for her.
Yeah, great. I'm all for
And
it.
you could roll the dice and maybe, you know,
It allows, theoretically, the idea is someone would always be stuck voting last and could be the decision maker on everything that was close. And so it was deemed appropriate to kind of share that potential burden. This still doesn't, but it doesn't mean you rotate it every single time.
well, it also is awkward to be the first one to vote.
Well,
Well, it could be, depending on what it is, yeah. But we have
It could be as challenging as the first as the last.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good move. It makes some consistency for you, because then you've got the same call, and you don't have to figure out who you're going to pick on first. Okay.
Okay, next thing is discussion items, updated 2025 budget, and we passed this out, and we're planning to have a budget meeting on December 5 at 3 p.m. I think we asked you about 2:30 p.m., but, so I don't know if everyone's, Jerry, I wasn't sure if you could make that on December 5. It's Thursday.
Yep. Thanks, so.
Okay. Last I knew, we hadn't heard back, but the meeting was earlier today. Yeah. Oh,
This
okay.
afternoon.
Good. Okay. Just a few highlights I thought I might mention. We can delve into this right now as much as you like. The revenue increase on this proposed budget is 7.5%, and the expenses are up 11%. We have very few new, this wouldn't be apparent from looking at the budget, we have very few new hires. I'm showing 3 in fire, and fire has to either be 3 or 0 because of the shifts. You're hiring 3 people or you're not hiring anybody. 1.5 in police, 1.8 in streets, 0 in city hall, 0 in the library. And so we're really trying to, you know, keep the expenses down. As I mentioned before, there's been a big increase in housing starts, and that creates, and of course, constant increase in our population. That creates more work for a bunch of different departments, obviously. This budget includes 3% raises, and I think some key pages on expenses are page 8 and page 8.1. Because page 8 shows the expenses by department, and 8.1 shows expenses by department without salary and benefits. So you can kind of look there and see what's happening. And on the capital expenditures budget, it's right now it's showing 5.6 million. So we're trying to keep those down.
We got revenue increase of 7%, got 7.5% increase in revenue, but a 11% increase in expenses.
Right,
So
yeah.
what is your plan, man?
So, good question. That's been a bit of a challenge lately. A lot of it has to do with compensation. That's why we're trying to keep the number of employees down. Compensation, pension expenses, things like that. And it's been a real challenge for us. That's one reason why we went out and got that one.
The bond,
Yeah, the bond.
the loan for the
Spread that's been
The revenue bond.
yeah. So we still have, we're still working off of a reserve about 15 million, but it's a big challenge on the budget to break even, which is something to think about, as Doug Fowler's pointed out, something to think about for the future.
And we don't have the resources of businesses in Vista like other communities around us
Yeah,
to anticipate growth in that tax revenue stream. That's our difficulty.
one of the things I'm starting to notice, which when you do have increased business, which we're starting to have with some of the plans people have, the expenses tend to start before the increase. In other words, you have all these burdens of the planning department and the different departments, and the new business isn't done. The expenses come before anything's done. It's going to bring in sales tax. So our city sales tax is going up pretty significantly each year. This year in particular, we're up, so far 6.6%. If you look at most cities, they're not like that. We're working off a small base, but even cities in Northwest Arkansas aren't like that.
We're doing better than most of them. But
Yeah, if you look at the average around the state, it's way, way below that.
Well, Bentonville, Roger goes down.
Yeah, and I noticed the state revenue was down again in October statewide, so.
I mean, and I think it's a good budget. It is what it is. I mean, you can't hardly operate without 11% increase just because of how our city government is grown. Police, fire, et cetera. I'm not talking about admin, just running the government every day. I'm talking about our essential departments, right? Because we had to add personnel and everything else, and salaries are going up, benefits are going up, et cetera. I think, we're headed down a road. We're going to have to make some really tough decisions here in a year or two about what we are going to fund in capital projects, capital budget, right?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about a new fire department, and I'm looking at this thing and I'm like going, I don't know how we're going to do it, even if the residents would approve a bond extension, right? Because you're going to have, 12 new employees you're going to have to add on, those aren't going to be, and then because we got to replace police cars, we got to put, the fire, the ambulances, the replace those, you want to keep those updated. It's almost like we're looking at, we got to make sure we do those things first.
Yeah.
But so I guess my question is, available funds at the end of 2024, we had $12.3 million, right? After our 25% revenue holdback for emergencies.
Yeah.
And our first capital budget sheet that we got, we had 6.4 million. So we about cut that in half in 1 year because of capital budget outlay. But because of the revenue bond, we got, what was it, we talked the other day, is it 2.4 million that's going to go back to
On expenses already incurred?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it'll be 6.4 and like 2.4 million back on the expenses that we're kind of like recouping that money that we spent, right?
Yeah.
So, we're still looking pretty good, but it's going to go fast. And, something we didn't talk about, we talked about a new fire station. Well, we need a new grader, right? It kind of came out of left field. We've outgrown our street department. I mean, we've got some things coming down the pipe. I said, we're going to,
Yeah.
whoever's working on it is
Yeah.
going to have to be doing some pretty sharp pencils and do some pretty tough arithmetic.
Pretty creative things.
Yeah. So, and you know what? It's not because of loose spending or anything like that. It's just the environment that we're living in today.
the cost of living in Northwest Arkansas.
Just the cost of doing business
Yeah.
is getting us.
And an example is that the car wash that the street department put in for the vehicles and things, that was
Great example,
more
right?
than doubled what it was 4 years ago.
It was $170,000, we ended up paying $540 for it.
500.
And we had to do it. We did not have a choice. Anyway,
So,
glad we built the public safety complex.
Yep.
Fire station number 3 when we did in the training center.
and we may have to look at future capital projects as being not as much brick and mortar, but more metal and lower cost type of selections in our projects.
Well, the question is, how do we increase the revenue? And it would certainly, commercial enterprises and commercial developments would certainly help that, but do we have any possibility of having any kind of discussion, Ukraine or whatever subsidiary might be, and we might be dealing with as to what kind of plans that they might have for future development?
They are planning to have a public, remember they said they'd have another public meeting. They're planning to have a public meeting in early January. So that will give people insights into what they plan for phase 1.
It'd be nice if they would have one with the city council and kind of give us some kind of an idea of what their plans are.
They could do that. They wouldn't, they would not do it before the public meeting, but they could do that, yeah.
The reality is whatever they do, it's 3 to 5 years before we see a penny of that, and whatever. I mean, it's probably closer to 5 by the time we really see any money flowing in our income stream.
They could build a casino where
Assuming that the local residents would vote for that.
Not without the approval of Benton County
Right.
voters.
I think
And
a
a
casino,
constitutional.
where they would, Walmart Supercenter and our neighborhood market plan would be an excellent.
Choice?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's big enough, though.
I don't think.
Anyway, before we get too far in the weeds, you can continue to study this budget. We will be going over it December 5. So appreciate your efforts in that regard.
The last item is our schedule of meetings for 25 this year.
Yes, this is draft. If you could,
Oh.
if you could study your calendars this week, it will be in next week's. Jason is writing up a,
Yeah, we do a resolution every year to adopt the meeting calendar for the next year. So we were going to add this to a resolution to the agenda for Monday,
For November.
for this
Right.
month. Yes. And I didn't come up with it, but I think we made the same adjustments in terms of holiday that we normally make. And-
right. I've checked it through with department heads and they've all agreed on it, but we want council to, make sure these dates work on your calendars.
It's invariable that for whatever reason, one of these or another, all of us will have a conflict somewhere along the line that's unplanned. So, no matter, best laid plans of mice and men.
I just wanted it in your hands a week before you vote on it.
This hasn't changed from what you sent out before, is it? It's the same calendar as you sent before. You circulated this a month and a half ago?
Right, that was the first time around. So this is the same. I just printed it out for you to refresh your memories for next week.
Yeah.
Jason, did issue 2 change the requirements for casino? Can any locale, county or city, can they vote to have?
My understanding, because it was quite confusing for people, especially non-lawyers, it revoked the casino permit in Polk County,
Right.
which I assumed would, and which did create a federal lawsuit because they had been granted a permit and it was taken away, and the state's probably going to end up having to pay something related to that, but anyway, they did that. And it made a point of saying that in the future, any casino would have to obtain the voters' consent in the county, but then again, the Constitution does not authorize any additional casinos. So my thinking on that is that it would have to be a constitutional amendment to authorize another casino in another county. Then that could also change this requirement everyone just voted on to say that the county voters had to approve it. So I think there's still a little bit of confusion there.
As far as which would come first,
Well,
constitutional
yeah,
amendment or
well,
the,
right, but I mean, they put this in the Constitution. Well, you amend the Constitution, there's nothing in there that says you can't amend what you just amended to say, okay, we're gonna have a casino in Hazard County and without regard to any vote or whatsoever.
Sure.
Then the state would vote on it as an amendment, but
So basically, the amendment, or the amendment that was just passed then may not be constitutional.
no, it was constitutional. They changed the Constitution. This doesn't affect all this to Benton County at all. But whenever the government provides a permit, if we permitted something and it was according to the law, and then all of a sudden we walked in and said, permit revoked,
Right,
then that person would have a claim.
right,
That's kind of what the voters did.
right.
And so those developers, I think, are going to, and I have done the work on that, they're going to court to try and get some money back for what they put into the project, I guess. I don't know. I think it's fair to say there aren't going to be more casinos unless there are more elections that take place first. I can say that for sure.
And it was a curiosity question, not a.
And I don't represent any casino developers or casino opponents.
I guess one thing that we need to plan for next year,
It's not a casino.
is that in talking with the local legislators, it is apparent that they will bring back the same
Oh, yeah, on short-term rentals.
legislation about short-term rentals. So we need to have our guns in a row and our people at the orange light ready to move, not knowing how fast it's going to come. But it will be coming back, so we can.
Written the same way.
Implications are that it will be pretty much the same proposal they had before, with a few additions, but really, the one that they had is,
Well, I would say that, of course, we only operate according to how the state allows us. When it tells us we're restricted, we restrict it. Otherwise, we can operate the way we see fit in the area. So if they come in and say we can't do what we've done, they come to you and say you've got to repeal something, you've got to change something, whatever. But until then,
our education about the fire code has been very informative, and there may be some routes we can take there that are creative.
if we start getting creative with this, we're going to go to court, so we're just going to get ready.
That's all right.
We're talking about budget, you might as well put a few thousand in the fire.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we're adjourned, thank you.
I say